you could kind of feel like with the players on the orange carpet that they just did not seem like they were having a great time. Like they were coming out of these meetings that in their eyes felt like they were frustrating. Like Breanna Stewart talked about how, it felt like, they spent 45 minutes on introductions in a meeting that was about 2 to 2.5 hours. Neko Ogwumike talked about, out of like 2 out of 50 issues feel like they are resolved at this point. And I thought that, the stud buds just completely saved that night. But also, apparently, Courtney Williams was pretty active in that meeting, too. She was described to me as being kind of the same as she is on the court. The same fire and the passion that you see from her on the court is what you got from her in the meetings as well. And I think that, just their presence overall, just kind of like, I think negotiating is hard, right? Like, even in circumstances where you are closer than these players seem to be with the union, it is difficult. Nobody really wants to have an actual dollar value put on what they do, especially when it's something that they love. And they just, the stud buds kind of just helped raise the vibration after that, because you could feel it on the orange carpet. And then after that, it seemed like things sort of just got a lot better from there. The meat of this really is they're far apart. And the interesting thing too is that I felt like Kathy Engelbert was kind of telling a different story than what the players were telling. She came into her press conference and she was talking about how the meeting felt like it was communicative, candid, constructive. I was really using alliteration. I don't know if that was intentional on her part. And she also emphasized that she has respect for the players as well, which feels like a response to the players feeling disrespected about their business acumen. As you reported, Neko Ogwumike told you that Kathy has said to her face that she doesn't think that the players understand the business side of this. And it feels like the players came in very, very serious. And it almost feels like the league kind of had to do an about face because they did not necessarily win the PR battle of all of this. I think Kathy's had a very hard week.
Yeah, I think these moments now more than ever are when we got to apply some critical thinking. Just because it's said doesn't make it true.
Right.
And we're, as journalists in this moment, in the midst of one of the most pivotal moments in the league's history. And there are 2 sides to this story. We've got the union, we've got the league. And the one thing that I will say is we are hearing a lot more from the union's perspective than we are from the league's perspective. So the one thing that has felt a little frustrating is the league's lack of communication, because there's a lot of misinformation out there regarding the CBA and regarding the negotiations. And I know Kathy has said in the past that, they're not going to negotiate in the media, and that can be true while also communicating clearly about, what is accurate versus what isn't. For example, that fixed number that the union has talked about being in the league's proposal, Kathy called that inaccurate, but didn't elaborate on, what was inaccurate about it, other than to say that the current CBA has a revenue sharing system in place, which, yes, sure, it does. Black and white does, but the league hasn't hit it. The players haven't seen that revenue, they haven't tapped it. So, okay, sure. In black and white terms, yes, there is revenue sharing currently in the CBA. But so I just think when we hear from the league, when we hear from Kathy in these moments at an all-star game, you do have to take everything with a grain of salt, the same way you do when you're hearing one side from the union. Because again, these are let's take sports out of it. These are 2 business entities that are negotiating a contract. I mean, I was in negotiations when I was part of a union back in Chicago for the Sun-Times. And as much as people are forward facing and we support local journalism, we want what's best for local journalists, they're not actually standing on that. They're making decisions that are best for the success of the business. So, again, you've got to take everything, I think, with a grain of salt now more than ever, because how we all cover this does matter. So I think her comments were definitely like calculated. They always are. She's a commissioner. Like every commissioner gets up on stage and is very ready for what's about to be asked and what's about to be said.
Yeah, that particular instance was really frustrating because I think you had asked a question about the revenue sharing and, you know, why the league, what justification the league has for a fixed revenue share, which we'll get into all of that. And Engelbert talked about how the league doesn't actually have a fixed revenue share, that there is a revenue sharing target that they can hit, which felt like just kind of ducking the question on a technicality when it was actually an opportunity for her, whether or not she wanted to make the case for a fixed revenue system or not, to at least, you know, give the other side. And, you know, I'm not necessarily one that believes too much in the other side. And maybe that's part of the reason that she ducked the question, because when you do get into the finances of the league's growth, there's absolutely no question that the players should be getting a revenue share that, you know, is bigger and also allows them to like grow with the growing revenue in the league. But at the same time, it was kind of like, I feel like the non-answer actually kind of gave me a sense of how confident they actually feel in their business position, maybe. At the same time, it was this sort of, the other thing also on the revenue share, for those who don't know, is this was a target that was that was decided for going into the 2020 season. And it's a cumulative revenue share target. And because of the 2 COVID seasons, there were just so many losses across sports. Like I think the NBA lost billions of dollars in their 2 COVID seasons, but they had to continue to operate. The WNBA had the wobble season, and then also had a season where there was obviously less fans in the stands. And they've never, like, whatever growth that they've had in the years since, they have not been able to make up for those past losses enough to trigger that revenue sharing target. Just for people who don't know, I know you know. But yeah, I just wanted to make that part clear. And the other part I thought was interesting was, you know, just her kind of offering a mea culpa on certain things. Like I think she actually kind of acknowledged reffing to be more of a structural problem than she ever has. She usually always just says that, well, you know, you never talk to any fans or opposing teams who actually like the referees. And I thought that was interesting. And it also spoke to what I imagine will be some level of, you know, wholesale changes coming to many different parts of the leagues. Maybe not wholesale changes, but I think that the league is about to change a lot, and the league is about to become a lot more well-financed. It's about to have a lot more manpower. I have a story coming out tomorrow, and one of the things that I'm going to talk about is how aggregate salaries for league and team staff has increased. Or the story will actually be out while you guys are listening to this. So the league is about to change a lot, and the league is already growing. And with them fixing the issues that have turned people off in the past, I think that it only kind of makes more of a case for the players to get more of that share, because even when you look at this past weekend, right? Like you can take it back to the stud buds. Not only were the players the biggest sort of draw to this weekend, and they had a very successful weekend, despite the fact that Caitlin Clark did not play the second most watched All-Star game of all time, other than last year, the most watched skills challenge, and continues to tell this story where, of course, the Caitlin Clark effect is stratospheric. It is just incomparable to just about anything else happening in sports right now. But you also have the story emerging where all of these other parts of the league are also growing in a self-sustaining way that is no longer actually reliant as much on her presence, you know, whether it is the Golden State Valkyries, the New York Liberty, and, you know, Las Vegas Aces. There are a lot of teams that have seen a lot of grown interest that are going to be, are already able to kind of stand on their own 2 feet. And you also have the Paige Beckers effect. You're going to have a Dallas team that right now only has a stadium capacity of 6,000 that will be able to house a lot more people in 2027. Their plans got delayed to 2027, but that's gate revenue that you're not getting out of the Paige Beckers effect, because the league had not caught up to this moment, wasn't necessarily ready for this moment. All of those infrastructure changes are coming. And that's why it's such a good investment. You know, I think that's why I think NBA owners can see all of these market inefficiencies that are going to be much easier for owners with bigger pockets to mine, which is why you will pay a $250 million expansion fee. The owners collectively will take home $925 million from expansion. And all of those are going to be project to be good investments for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing that stands out to me most when you bring up this conversation is when Cheryl Reeves said, I can remember being told that the WNBA would never be mainstream. Well, let's talk about business, shall we? Because imagine being part of a business where you've got all these executives looking you in your face and telling you that the business that you represent, the business that you're part of, will never thrive. I'm sorry. So how did we expect the W to be successful? It's actually a miracle that the W has reached this point when throughout its history, it's had people in these top executive positions looking at it like that. And when you talk about the Caitlin Clark effect and how it's trickling out and it's no longer just about, games that she's involved in or situations she's involved in. Well, last year, when everyone was trying to talk about, how the league is bigger than Caitlin Clark and making all these points that it's not just about Caitlin Clark. Well, I think one of the biggest points was Caitlin Clark's impact is going to expand the attention and eyes on every other star in this league. And it's going to lead to fans falling in love with other players. I mean, look at Courtney Williams and like Natisha Heidemann. This stud buds thing is hysterical. And every true W fan or all of the journalists who've been covering the W, I think could say Courtney Williams is one of the funniest players in the league. Like, I remember someone asking me last year, they're like, oh, if someone needed a show, who would you give a show to? And I was like, Skylar Diggins-Smith and Courtney Williams. Those were two names that came to the top of my head because, again, they're just themselves. Like, they've got very unique personalities. And I think people are drawn to people who are just themselves. And so, again, like, this stud buds moment, was a long time coming because of who Courtney Williams is and Natisha Heidemann is, but they've had all these hurdles to overcome. They existed in a league that was told you'll never be mainstream. Yeah. And so now, because Caitlin's here, because Paige is here, because Angel's here, the W has become mainstream because social media has, forced people to look at it as mainstream. And now these other players are benefiting from that, not because they didn't always have this, but because, again, those executives that Cheryl was talking about were like, oh no, you'll never be mainstream. Well, sure. Yeah. Like if that's the mentality, for sure. And it took, again, nothing, I just got to say this, nothing the league did was innovative or brilliant or thrust the W into the position that it's in. The players took control with social media. And when the entire world was ignoring women, they were online building brands and turning themselves into the coolest thing in the world. You know what I'm saying? That was all them. And then everyone else caught up. Like, let's be real.